You are not confined by your past, you are only confined by the way you recall it. Rewrite the story in your imagination, and the future will begin to rearrange itself to reflect your new assumption. Watch this closely, because once you understand how to reshape the past, you will uncover the force that has been influencing your life all along. Your entire past is, in a sense, an illusion. Not because someone is deceiving you, but because what you call the past does not truly exist in the way you think it does. Right now, in this very moment, you are carrying memories of events you believe occurred, things that shaped you, moments that defined you, experiences that molded who you are. But here is what you have not fully realized. Those events only exist in your imagination right now, in this present moment. The past is not sitting somewhere behind you, stored in some invisible archive, unchangeable and permanent. The past exists only in your mind, only in your memory, only in your present imagination of what once was. And if it exists only in imagination, if it is real only because you are imagining it right now, then it can be imagined differently, revised, reshaped, completely transformed. Tonight, this understanding can dissolve everything you thought you knew about memory, about time, and about the fixed nature of reality, because the past is not fixed. Your memory is not as accurate as you assume, and you have the ability right now in this moment to change what happened, not symbolically, not metaphorically, but in a very real psychological sense. This is revision, and it is one of the most misunderstood yet powerful techniques ever taught. Let me begin by challenging a belief you have carried your entire life. You believe the past is real, solid, and unchangeable. You believe that what happened is finished, that events are carved into stone, that your history is a permanent record you must carry forever. But this belief, this assumption that the past is fixed, is shaping your present reality in ways you do not even notice. Because the truth is simple: the past does not exist anywhere except in your consciousness right now. Think about it deeply. Where is yesterday? Where is last week? Where is 10 years ago? It is not physically behind you. It is not stored in some dimension where past events continue to exist. The past exists only as memory, as thought, as imagination in the present moment. Every time you remember something, you are not retrieving a perfect recording. You are imagining it again right now. You are reconstructing the event in your mind. And this is where everything shifts. If you are imagining the past right now, you can imagine it differently. Consider an event from your past, something clear and specific. As you think about it, where is that event actually happening? It is occurring in your mind, in the present. You are not traveling back in time. You are not accessing a stored reality. You are imagining what you believe happened. The event itself is gone. It does not exist anywhere anymore. All that exists is your current imagination of it. Because it exists only as imagination, it is flexible, changeable, and open to transformation, just like any other imagined scene. You can imagine yourself successful. You can imagine yourself loved. You can imagine yourself thriving. And just as easily, you can imagine that the past unfolded differently than you remember. Because remembering is imagining, and imagining shapes reality. Now understand why this matters so deeply. You are not just holding memories of the past. You are carrying the emotional states those memories create. Every memory you revisit is actively shaping your present consciousness, your identity, your current state of being. If you remember rejection, you carry the state of someone who was rejected, and that state continues to produce more rejection in your life. If you remember embarrassment, you carry that state, and it influences your present experiences. If you remember failure, loss, or lack, you embody those states, and those states continue to produce more of the same. Your memory of the past is shaping your present, not because the past is reaching forward, but because you're imagining it right now. That act of imagination creates your current state, and your current state is what manifests outwardly. So if your memory is creating a state of limitation or unworthiness, it becomes necessary to change the memory, not to deny reality, not to escape truth, but to recognize that the past exists only as present imagination, and you have the ability to imagine it differently. This is the essence of revision. Instead of only imagining forward, picturing what you want in the future, you imagine backward. You take an event that has already occurred, one that still carries emotional weight, and you imagine it unfolding in a new way. Not as fantasy, but as a deliberate reconstruction that alters your present state. For example, imagine someone who carried deep shame from a business failure years ago. He had started something, it collapsed, and he faced humiliation. Each time he considered trying again, he felt that same failure. Not because it was still happening, but because he was recreating it in his mind. When asked where that event existed, he could not point to it. It existed nowhere except in his imagination, so he began to revise it. Each night he returned to that moment, but instead of replaying failure, he imagined success. He saw the business thriving, the launch succeeding, himself being appreciated rather than criticized. He repeated this process again and again, not as wishful thinking, but as if it were the true memory. Gradually something changed. The shame faded, the fear disappeared, the state of failure dissolved. Not because the physical event changed, but because his present imagination changed. And since the past exists only as present imagination, changing the imagination changed his experience of the past. He no longer carried failure within him. He carried success. And from that new state, he created a different future. What most people misunderstand about revision is this: they think they are altering history or changing some external timeline. But that is not what is happening. You are not changing what occurred back then, because that moment no longer exists. You are changing what you are imagining right now. And what you imagine now determines your state, and your state determines your reality. When you revise a memory of failure into one of success, you are not rewriting history. You are shifting your present state by changing your current imagination. And that shift in state changes everything, because manifestation does not come from the past. It comes from your present state of consciousness. And that state is shaped by what you are imagining, whether forward into the future or backward into the past. Most people focus only on imagining the future. They visualize success, abundance, or love. And while this can be effective, they overlook the importance of revision. They ignore how their memories continue to shape their present state. You might imagine wealth, but if you constantly recall struggle, you are holding conflicting states. The emotional weight of past memories often dominates. You might imagine success ahead, but if you keep remembering failure, you remain anchored in that state. You cannot fully step into a new identity while still replaying an old one through memory. This is why revision is so powerful. It clears the past, dissolves the old state, and aligns your consciousness completely. When your imagination of past, present, and future all reflect the same state, there is no resistance. Everything begins to move in harmony with that inner assumption. You become aligned, no longer divided between who you used to be and who you desire to become, simply who you are right now in this present moment, with a past that supports your chosen state instead of opposing it. Let me walk you through the exact method step by step. First, recognize a memory that is creating an unwanted state. It could be rejection, failure, embarrassment, loss, betrayal, anything that, when you think about it, brings up a negative feeling in your present awareness. Second, realize that this memory exists only in your imagination right now. The event itself is gone. It is no longer happening. It is not stored somewhere outside of you. It exists only because you are imagining it in this moment. Third, reimagine it. Close your eyes and return to that moment. But this time, see it unfolding the way you wish it had. Not as a fantasy, not as a what if, but as a memory, as though this is what truly took place. If you experienced rejection, imagine acceptance. If you failed, imagine success. If you were humiliated, imagine being respected. If you lost, imagine that you won. Make it vivid, make it feel real. Let it carry the sensory depth of an actual memory. Engage with it fully until it feels natural and believable within your mind. Fourth, repeat this process every night until the revised version feels more real than the original. The original memory has been replayed countless times, which is why it feels so solid. Through repetition, it became convincing. So now you must repeat the revised version until it becomes just as familiar, just as stable, just as effortless to recall. Fifth, observe how your present state begins to shift as the revised memory becomes your dominant impression of that event. You will feel different, lighter, freer, more self-assured because you are no longer carrying the emotional weight created by the old version. Instead, you are holding a new state formed by a new memory, and that state will naturally shape a new reality. Do you understand what this truly means? You are not a product of your past because your past exists only as present imagination. You are not limited by what occurred because what occurred exists only in how you are remembering it right now. You are not defined by your history because your history is fluid, adaptable, and open to revision in this very moment. You can change what shaped you because what shaped you exists only in your mind right now. This is freedom, complete and undeniable freedom. You are not trapped by yesterday. You are not bound by last year. You are not confined by decades of unwanted experiences because all of those experiences exist only as present imagination. And present imagination can be changed. Here is something even deeper to consider. It is not only that you can change your memory of the past. Your present state is already influencing your memory of the past all the time. You have experienced this without even noticing. You recall an event one way when you are feeling low, and later in a different mood, you remember the same event in a completely different light. You remember your childhood one way when you feel anger, and years later, from a more healed perspective, you recall it with understanding or compassion. Your present state is already reinterpreting your past continuously and automatically. So the real question is not whether you can change your memory of the past. You are already doing that. The real question is whether you will do it consciously or unconsciously. Will you allow negative states to keep recreating negative memories, or will you intentionally revise your past so that it supports the state you choose to embody? Once you truly grasp this, once you understand that the past exists only as present imagination, everything becomes flexible. That rejection you have been holding on to can be revised into acceptance. That failure you cannot release can be revised into success. That painful experience you have identified with can be revised into a story of growth and victory. Not by denying that it happened, not by pretending it did not occur, but by recognizing that it exists now only in your imagination. And imagination can be directed. You are not altering some external record. You are changing the state you are in right now by changing what you imagine about what has been. And as your state shifts, your reality shifts with it. Because consciousness is the only true reality, and the past exists only within consciousness. I encourage you to make revision a daily practice, not just for major life events, but for everything. At the end of each day, before you fall asleep, review your day. Any moment that created an unwanted feeling, any conversation that did not go the way you preferred, any interaction that left you feeling diminished, any situation that triggered negativity, revise it. Replay it in your imagination the way you would have preferred it to unfold. Do this not to deny what occurred, but to change the state it created within you. Because what happened during the day exists now only as memory, as imagination, and you can imagine it differently. Practice this every night, revise your day, release unwanted states, create memories that support the identity you choose to embody. Over time, you will begin to notice something remarkable. Your present begins to shift, not because the past has changed, but because you are no longer carrying old states into your present through repeated imagination of unwanted events. You become free from yesterday, free from last week, free from last year, free to become who you decide to be right now, without the burden of an imagined past that was never fixed to begin with. The past never happened in the way you believe it did. What happened exists only as your present imagination of it, as memory, as thought occurring right now. And because it exists only in imagination, it can be reimagined, not to escape reality, but to understand that your memory of reality is shaping your present state, and your present state is shaping your current life experience. So change the memory, revise the past, reimagine what was, not because you are living in illusion, but because you are finally taking control of the only place the past truly exists, your consciousness in this moment. Your memory is not entirely accurate, not because you are wrong about facts, but because the state your memory creates is limiting you, and you have the ability to remember in a different way. Remember success instead of failure. Remember acceptance instead of rejection. Remember victory instead of pain. Watch how your present begins to transform. Not because the past itself changed, but because the state you are in, created by your present imagination of the past, has completely shifted. The past is flexible, memory is imagination, and imagination shapes reality. Revise boldly, revise fully, revise until the past you recall is the past that supports the state you choose to live in. Thank you, and good evening. Thank you for being part of this journey into the deeper layers of consciousness. Remember, you are not here by chance. You are here because something within you is ready to understand this truth. Take these ideas and allow them to reshape not only your thinking, but your entire experience of life. Until we connect again in consciousness, continue assuming your greatness and living from the end of your desired reality.